You are listening to On the Pond with your host, Adam Steer. How's it going, everyone? Want to welcome you all to the 4th episode of On the Pond. I am your host, Adam Steer. Now, it's been a while since I've had my last podcast. I've been going through school, have a lot of assignments and tests and other things I had to do. But now it is time to make another episode and to discuss the 2019 NHL Draft Lottery. So for those who don't know, the Draft Lottery happened 2 days ago, and basically I'm going to talk about who won the lottery, basically give a little mock draft of who I think everyone's going to take at this point right now, assuming all the picks stand as is. So, the winner of the first pick, the New Jersey Devils, move up from number 3 to number 1 to snag the first overall pick and the potential of landing Jack Hughes. The New York Rangers move up 4 spots from 6 to 2, and they get the second pick in the draft. This is sort of like when Winnipeg a few years ago moved up from number 6 to number 2 when they snagged Patrick Laine. This is a very similar situation. The Rangers moving up 4 spots, and they're grabbing a Finn, most likely, assuming they're taking Capo Caco. However, the biggest riser of the draft lottery, the Chicago Blackhawks, move up from number 12 all the way to number 3 and get the third overall pick in the draft. That is huge. Stan Bowman had the biggest smile on his face. He was trying to contain during the lottery. You could just tell. Which means the Colorado Avalanche, with the Senators' pick, moved down to number 4. A lot of fans were kind of hoping that would be the first pick. I'm kind of glad they picked 4th so everyone can stop talking about it. I feel bad everyone's bashing on Ottawa all the time. Give them a break. Cut them some slack. So Colorado moves down 3 spots. LA, unfortunately, moves down 3 spots. I really wanted LA to win this lottery. I really, really, really wanted them to win. Detroit moves down 2 spots. I believe Buffalo moves down 2 spots. And then Edmonton, Anaheim, Vancouver, Philadelphia, and Minnesota all moved down a spot because Chicago kind of, interrupted that a bit. So it was a crazy draft lottery, and I had a feeling the Devils were going to win the lottery. I had told a few friends, I was like, I don't know why. I have a feeling the Devils are going to win. I had a feeling some team between the 3 and 5 range would win. Just sort of like a gut feeling. You never really know these things. They're kind of all luck, but they ended up winning. So, I mean, I'm not much of a secret, storyteller, but, you never know. Anyway, so I'm going to run a little mock draft, hypothetically, assuming that the order stays as is. Now, part of me is picking based on, who I think the best available player is, and part of me is also picking based on position. I'm trying to combine the two as best that I can. So, I know there's been some doubts and speculations about the number 1 pick. However, I believe the New Jersey Devils will select Jack Hughes, and I know there's talk about him not being ready next season, but I think the way he skates and the way he plays, I think he will be ready. He's got Nico Hischier to learn from, even though he's a young kid. They also have Taylor Hall they can learn from. They have Paul Mary. They have other young guys like Zaka, McLeod, Bastian, Coleman, Miles. Well, Jersey's starting to build up a little core here, and you know what? They deserve it. They had a couple rough years there with the whole Kovalchuk thing, and they lose Parise to free agency. The Devils kind of needed a couple wins here, so I'm kind of glad. So yeah, I think the Devils are going to pick Jack Hughes. For the next 10, 15 years, they're going to have Hischier, Hughes as their number 1 and 2 centers, and I think it's going to be excellent for them. Number 2, I have the New York Rangers selecting Capo Caco. Now, this guy is an unbelievable player. There is talk about him going number 1. I would not be surprised if the Devils took him number 1 because I know Caco has a lot more pro elements to his game that scouts believe that he can transition to the NHL game better than Hughes will. However, I think because of Hughes' dynamic speed and playmaking, he's going to be the number 1 pick. I do think Caco's going to be the number 2 pick. He's like Mikko Rantanen to me. When I watch him play, he kind of does everything well. He can shoot well. He can pass well. He's kind of that Mikko Rantanen type player. And if the Rangers are getting that kind of player and Caco at 2, I think then good on them. Because that is just outstanding. Number 3, the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, I know a lot of people think they're going to take Vasily Podkolzin, but to me, this feels a lot like Jesse Puljujarvi with all the talk, all the hype around it, and that if Podkolzin doesn't go number 3, it's going to be, why the hell didn't they do that? They should have taken Podkolzin. Fans don't understand that scouts pick players over others for specific reasons, and maybe there's something to Puljujarvi that the Columbus just didn't honestly like. And you could say the same thing with with Philip Zadina. The Habs wanted Jesperi Kotkaniemi. They believed he was the best player available at the time. I don't believe they picked just based on position. I honestly think they believe he was the best player available at the time. And so you're starting to see this with other teams now, and I don't think the Blackhawks are going to take Podkolzin. Podkolzin also has 2 years left, I believe, in Russia, so he's a very risky player in that sense, and I don't trust Russian players that currently stay in Russia that don't come over to the the CHL or the NCAA. You see Andrei Svechnikov join the Barrie Colts, Ivan Provorov, Brandon Wheat Kings, Mikhail Sergachev, Windsor Spitfires. All these Russians that came over that were serious about playing and that were committed to the NHL wanted to do it, which is why I'm a fan of all of them. However, Podkolzin kind of concerns me a bit, which is why I have the Chicago Blackhawks at number 3 picking Bowen Byram, defenseman from the Vancouver Giants. I think Byram is an outstanding talent. Chicago has a lot of goal scoring. They were a top 10 team in goal scoring this year. They do not need offense. I honestly believe Byram is debatably the third best prospect in this draft after the 2 centermen go. I honestly believe that if Chicago can take Henry Jokiharju, who they drafted in 2017, and Adam Boqvist and Ian Mitchell is another defenseman they drafted in 2017, and now you're going to add Bowen Byram to a group that you already have Keith, Seabrook, and Gustafsson, you could sort of let the new guys come in and play more and let the older guys, take a step back. I think that's going to be absolutely huge for this franchise moving forward. Chicago can sign forwards. They can address their depth and through trade, free agency. They're not going to be able to get a defenseman like this who can play the left side. You've drafted right-sided defensemen. It's time to fill out your left side and get Bowen Byram at number 3. Number 4, one of my favorites in the draft. I have the Colorado Avalanche taking Kirby Dach of the Saskatoon Blades. I love everything about Kirby Dach. I love that he's big in size. Not only that he's big in size, he can skate. He knows, he's a big guy, but he's not slow. He's a smart guy. He's smart as hell. He has great vision, great IQ, wants to win. He's a modern-day Ryan Getzlaf, in my opinion. And Ryan Getzlaf's had an outstanding career with the Anaheim Ducks. And if Kirby Dach can come in and be a second-line center and maybe throw Tyson Jost either third-line center or maybe on the wing with Kirby Dach, I think Dach could be a huge area of need, as well as I do think he is the best player available. Colorado does not need the defense. They've drafted guys in Makar. They traded for Girard. They have Tyson Barrie, Eric Johnson. Connor Timmins is another guy who's coming up. They have so many guys. They have Nikita Zadorov. So you know what? It's, for as much as I think Colorado could take a defenseman, I do believe that if Byram is gone, then I believe Kirby Dach is the guy for them. Dach kind of brings that bigger element. Now I know Colorado is not a small team. They all play fast, but I think Dach would kind of bring a different element to them in terms of that. The way he plays at that size and that vision and playmaking ability, I think will be huge. And he'll be a great depth player, great second line player, maybe to go along with the Martin Kaut who you draft last year. Moving on, the LA Kings, the team who I really wanted to win this lottery. I really want LA to turn back into the team that they were a few years ago. However, the NHL is moving towards a speed game, so it's likely that's not going to happen. So now LA is drafting skilled players, and I believe they're going to keep at it, and they're going to draft the forward. And I think the guy they're going to pick, in my opinion, should be Alex Turcotte of the U.S. National Development Program. Now, I know Trevor Zegras, who's also part of the U.S. team with them, has been ranked higher, but Turcotte was injured for a little bit this season. But he's come back, and you could argue he's been their best player. He's been performing at a rate almost a little bit better than Jack Hughes. Hughes has been almost as good as Turcotte when they've both been in the lineup. Turcotte playing has been outstanding. He's a two-way guy. He's a leader. I've heard he's Jonathan Taves. I've heard he's Dylan Larkin with more offense, maybe a little less size, but Turcotte is so skilled. He can do everything. The Kings need a player like this. He has the speed to match. I honestly believe Turcotte would be the best available player at this spot for the Kings. Now, the 6th overall pick, the Detroit Red Wings, picking 6th overall for the second year in a row. Unfortunate that they had to move down in the draft. However, I believe that Detroit is going to go the route they did last year, and I think they're going to take a potential steal with their pick, being Vasily Podkolzin. I believe this could be the Philip Zadina 2.0. Not saying they're the same player. I'm saying Podkolzin could be Zadina in the sense that, teams believed he should have been picked earlier, and teams opted for other centers and other players before. However, I think Podkolzin, is an outstanding prospect. He is risky, but if Detroit wants to revamp the rebuild, they got to take the best players available, I think. I don't think they can shy away from this. And I do think Podkolzin going 6 would be a steal for Detroit. He'll have a few years left on the contract. Detroit has done an outstanding job of developing European players over the years, so I think Podkolzin would just be another great fit to go along with Zadina and Larkin and Rasmussen and Andreas Athanasiou, who scored 30 goals this year. I do think Detroit's biggest need would be Bowen Byram, and I think if he's there, Detroit should jump running to the podium to grab Byram, but however, I do not think Byram will be there at 6 for Detroit. Moving on to the 7th overall pick, the Buffalo Sabres. I have them selecting Dylan Cozens. Now, I know people talk about Dylan Cozens being a center. Personally, I see him being a winger. I see him complementing a Jack Eichel or a Casey Mittelstadt very well. Mittelstadt is not the fastest guy in the world. He's very skilled, and I think Cozens could bring that element of speed to Buffalo that I think they're lacking. They have Jeff Skinner. Eichel's a great skater, but he's not blazing fast, but he's a power guy. Reinhardt's, not the fastest guy, but he brings that element of smarts, and, he plays fast in terms of the pace and the IQ. I do think Cozens is a different type of player that they don't have. They don't have that size and blazing fast speed. And I do think Cozens could be a great contributor. He can play all over the lineup. You could throw Cozens in on second line center. You can throw him on second line right wing. I think he could be a great fit. Moving on. The Edmonton Oilers at number 8. No money lottery wins for the Oilers this year for as long as Taylor Hall is not a member of the Edmonton Oilers. I have Edmonton taking Trevor Zegras of the U.S. National Development Program. I believe Zegras is the best player available at this point. I think Edmonton can't focus on position at this point. Who they believe the best player available in the draft is, they have to take, because they have they have needs on defense, but you also drafted Evan Bouchard last year to go along with the Clefbaum, Sekera, Nurse, Russell. I know Russell's okay, not the biggest fan of him. Anyway, I do believe that they should take the best player available, and I think Zegras is that guy. He's a playmaking center. He's a whiz with the puck. He makes things happen. I think Edmonton needs sort of that other guy on offense that can sort of make things happen. You could put Zegras on a line with a Nugent Hopkins. You could put him on a line with Draisaitl or McDavid. He can kind of fit anywhere. And I think Zegras would be a great fit for them. Moving on, at number 9, I have the Anaheim Ducks taking Peyton Krebs. Peyton Krebs of the WHL's Kootenay Ice, he's played on an absolutely horrific team this year. However, he's been their their knight in shining armor in a sense, if you should say it. He's been unbelievable. He's produced with no one on his team, hardly, no offense to the team. He's just been the only guy to produce anything. With Draisaitl or McDavid, he can kind of fit anywhere. And I think Zegras would be a great fit for them. Moving on, at number 9, I have the Anaheim Ducks taking Peyton Krebs. Peyton Krebs of the WHL's Kootenay Ice, he's played on an absolutely horrific team this year. However, he's been their their knight in shining armor in a sense, if you should say it. He's been unbelievable. He's produced with no one on his team, hardly, no offense to the team. He's just been the only guy to produce anything. And, he's a leader. He's got to compete. He can skate very well. He's a great passer. He can shoot the puck, too. He needs to, like Kirby Dack, Dak's weakness is that, he should shoot more because he has a good shot. He just needs to find it more. Same with Peyton Krebs. I think Peyton Krebs finds his shot. He could be a very effective player in the NHL, and I think he would go along great with a Ducks team that has a lot of skill guys in Sam Steele and Troy Terry, and, you have Ricard Raquel, Maxime Comtois coming there. They're having guys, and I think Peyton Krebs, he can play center, he can play left wing, he can provide that element of flexibility to the Ducks. I think that would be a great fit as well. Moving on, I have the Vancouver Canucks at number 10, picking Matthew Boldy from the U.S. National Development Program. Now, a lot of people I know had Boldy higher. I personally would have had him higher, but from the reports that I've read and from watching some of his highlights, he's not the best skater, which is a little bit concerning. However, his hockey IQ is off the charts. He has an outstanding shot. Now, I'm not comparing him to Dylan Strome because I think they're still different players, but Dylan Strome thrived when he had a guy like Alex DeBrincat on his line to make things happen for him. I think if Matthew Boldy goes on a team like the Vancouver Canucks, he can play along with guys like, Horvat, Besser. He can play with an Elias Pettersson on a line who makes things happen. I think Boldy needs to find that center who can get him the puck, and I think he could do great things with that. So I think Boldy would be a great pick for the Canucks at 10. Number 11, I have the Philadelphia Flyers going off the board, maybe a little bit in some regards from some of the mock drafts I've seen. I have them taking Victor Soderstrom from the Swedish Elite League, from the SHL. Now, I believe this is an area of need for the Philadelphia Flyers. They have drafted forward upon forward upon forward. They had a little run on defensemen. In 2013, they took Sam Morin. 2014, Travis Sanheim. 2015, they took Ivan Provorov. And then obviously they drafted Gus Spear in the third round in 2012. But the last couple years, they've been taking forwards. They took German Rubtsov in 2016. They took Nolan Patrick, obviously, second overall in 2017. They took Morgan Frost. They took Joel Farabee in 2018. 14th overall. They took Jay O'Brien, 19th overall. They've been drafting all these forwards. The problem with Philadelphia is they need to keep the puck out of their end. And you have Carter Hart as your goalie of the future, but you need more guys on the back end. And I believe Victor Soderstrom could be a great offensive mind for the Flyers. You have Provorov, who's a great two-way guy. Sanheim's a great two-way guy. Gostisbehere's an offensive guy. You have Gudas, who's a good, strong defensive guy. I think Soderstrom would be great along the likes of Giroux and Konechny and Voracek and Couturier up front. And I think that he would be a great fit for them. Moving on, the 12th overall pick, the Minnesota Wild. I have the Minnesota Wild taking arguably the biggest boom or bust pick of this draft, being Cole Caulfield. Cole Caulfield, if he hits, could be an Alex DeBrincat, could be a 40-goal scorer in the NHL. One problem is he's 5'7" and he's not blazing fast. For a guy that you think would be 5'7" to be skating around everyone on the ice. However, he's so smart. He's dynamic. He makes things happen. He can shoot the puck. He's one of the best shooters. Arguably, you could argue he's the best shooter in this draft. Realistically, you could. He's unbelievable. Scouts have said he's one of the best shooters they've ever seen when covering prospects. I think Caulfield goes on a team in Minnesota who I think Minnesota lacks that game-breaking talent. And I think, they've been drafting safe over the years. They've drafted guys like Luke Cunnin and Joel Eriksson Ek. I think it's time that they start, playing a little risky and trying to go for the home run grand slam ball and taking guys like Cole Caulfield because I think it could work out. He's a great player. I could see Caulfield working out well there, along with, some of the young guys that I mentioned, and Ryan Donato, obviously, and Kevin Fiala. Moving on, I have the Florida Panthers taking Thomas Harley, left defenseman from the Mississauga Steelheads. Now, Thomas Harley is a dual citizenship. He can play for Canada or Team USA. I don't believe he's made a choice yet on who he's playing with. However, I do hope that he comes and joins Canada because I'd love to have him. Thomas Harley has moved up the rankings more than almost anyone I've seen. And to everyone out there listening, do not be surprised if Thomas Harley cracks the top 10. I personally will not be surprised at all. Personally, I think some of these teams in the top 10 need to address their forward positions more than defense. And I do believe that Thomas Harley, not only would he be the best available player at 13 for Florida, but I think he'll be a position of need that Florida desperately needs. They have Yandel, Matheson, Ekblad. They need another guy on D to give Florida's offensive guys the puck. Now, when you look at Florida, they were one of 3 teams in the NHL last year that had 5 guys on their team that had 60-plus points. You had Calgary, you had San Jose, and you had Florida. Florida, they don't have, if they get Bobrovsky, they're going to get the goalie. And I think if you draft Harley, you're starting to, really develop a strong team here. Florida has Owen Tippett, Alexei Heponiemi. They have Grigory Denisenko. They have even more guys coming on offense. It's about time, they draft that defenseman. They need him bad. They can start Harley can feed guys like Denisenko the puck, and I think it would be outstanding for them if they took Thomas Harley 13. Next, 14th overall for the Arizona Coyotes. I have them taking Philip Broberg. I think John Chaika, I have a feeling he really likes this guy. John Chaika likes the smooth skating players that guys that are do well with the analytics, and I feel like Broberg is kind of that guy that can provide that for the Coyotes. They've taken some forwards too. I feel like Arizona kind of they have Chychrun, they have OEL, but I feel like they still kind of need that big, smooth skating defenseman. And who better to learn from than Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's one of the best Swedish defensemen in the NHL. We can learn from him. I believe he could be a great fit, Broberg, in Arizona. He's a big guy. He skates well. He'll really bode well for them. Personally, I thought Arizona last year should have taken Quinn Hughes. I thought he was the best available player at number 5. However, they didn't. They took Barrett Hayden. And I think they got to go and address the D, and I think they got to go Philip Broberg, and I do think he is the best available player in the draft. The last pick of all of the lottery teams, the last mock pick I'm going to be making for it is for the Montreal Canadiens. I have them taking left defenseman Cam York from the U.S. National Development Program. Now, I think this could be a steal for Montreal, depending on, who else goes in the draft, who's available or not at the pick. It's hard to tell and predict these things when you don't know how the draft unfolds. This is why it's a mock draft. I think Cam York would be an excellent fit for Montreal. Cam York I believe is a top 15 prospect, so I think it would be great value if they got him here. But if you ask Montreal Canadiens fans, their biggest need is left defense. Their biggest need last year was centerman, but now you draft Jesperi Kotkaniemi, you add Ryan Poehling, you have Max Domi, who you trade for, Philippe Deneau. All of a sudden, center is an area for Montreal that's one of their strongest points. So I think now, when you traded Mikhail Sergachev for Jonathan Drouin, you need to address the defense. And you have guys in Alex Romanov coming. You have Victor Mete. You have Shea Weber on the right. You have Jeff Petrie, Josh Brook, all these kind of guys. Noah Juleson. I think that, addressing their left defense would be huge. And I think Cam York is dynamic and could be... He's basically like a Victor Mete, in my opinion, but I think he's a much better overall defenseman. I think he has the better offensive upside than Victor Mete. No offense to Mete. The guy just hasn't scored a goal in the NHL yet. But I think Cam York could be an outstanding fit for Montreal, going along with Romanov and Mete on that lefty. Suddenly, Montreal's building this team that, could be a powerhouse for years to come, hoping that Carey Price, kind of keeps up his Carey Price-like numbers. Anyways, guys, this is my top 15 mock draft for all of the lottery teams. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please hit subscribe if you like this video. I will be posting more content soon. I'm going to be posting a video later on about the playoffs and my playoff preview and my predictions. So yeah, thank you all very much for listening to this video, and this is On the Pond.